Hey, you, Matt. Matt. You can't show me photosynthesis and cellular respiration. You can't. You can't. You can't.
Bro, what are you talking about, man? I'm just trying to eat this pizza Alejandro gave us, alright? You see that pizza? Back.
What is the purpose of photosynthesis, you might ask? Well, its main purpose is to make energy, which gives it the ability to work. So photosynthesis has two main stages, one being the light-dependent reaction,
And the second being the light-independent reaction, or the Calvin cycle.
but the light-dependent reaction is the first to take place between the two. The reaction takes place in the thylakoid membrane, which is located inside a chloroplast. Once the light energy hits the chlorophyll, it excites the electron and in the chlorophyll. And the chlorophyll doesn't want to hold this excited electron, so it gets bounced around from chlorophyll to chlorophyll, and it even goes through the membrane. But the chlorophyll does not want to keep the excited electron, so in the end the electron gets picked up by an electron receptor. Electron receptor is basically what its title is. It's a molecule that has the ability to combine with electrons to create a new type of molecule. And the receptor in this process is NADP+. When NADP+ combines with its electron, it then turns into NADPH, which then goes into the light-independent reaction. Even though the electron was picked up and combined to make NADPH, the energy from the electron is still present. With this energy, another electron receptor comes into place. This receptor is called ADP. The energy from the electron then combines with the ADP to make the ATP, otherwise known as energy. The electron essentially needs to be replenished, so it takes in water to break down into oxygen and hydrogen, and the bond that is broken releases an electron, which then goes into the chlorophyll, and oxygen and hydrogen being the two byproducts. So the herbicide we were assigned was the phenylureas. Phenylureas are used mainly for weed control in vegetables such as potatoes, peas, carrots, and beans. Farmers are known mainly for using this herbicide. It blocks the photosystem 2 in the light-dependent reaction. So this doesn't allow photosystem 2 to occur. So it just stops the growth of crops when the herbicide is sprayed onto these crops.
The next stage in photosynthesis is called the light-independent reaction, or the Calvin cycle. And this process is a lot simpler, well, in our minds, than the light-dependent reaction, because there's not as much going on. So basically what this reaction does is it takes carbon dioxide, CO2, and the hydrogens that we made from breaking the bonds between hydrogen and oxygen in the dependent reaction, and it combines with the energy from ATP and the electron from NADPH, and it makes carbon dioxide and hydrogen reconfigure into making glucose. So mainly the sole process of the light-independent reaction, or the Calvin cycle, is to make the final product of glucose.
Cellular respiration.
So the next process we're going to be talking about is cellular respiration.
And the Bound's equation of cellular respiration is C6H12O6, which is glucose, plus 6O2, which is oxygen, to yield 6CO2, which is 6 carbon dioxide, plus 6H2O, which is 6 molecules of water.
And during this process, there's 3 different stages. The first being glycolysis, the second the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, and the third being oxidative phosphorylation. And the first one we're going to talk about is glycolysis. So the main purpose of glycolysis is to get NADH for later stages. But to do this, glycolysis takes glucose from photosynthesis, uses energy to try to start breaking down the bonds that glucose has, and since it's taken energy, it then goes from ATP to ADP, which is an energy carrier, And when you break bonds, you release both energy and electrons. So since ADP is an electron energy carrier, it takes in the energy from the breaking bonds and then goes back to ATP, which you get 4 ATP in this case. And a new electron receptor is introduced, which is called NAD+. And when you broke the bond, you release the electrons, and it absorbs the electron and then combines to make NADH. And so your final products are a net gain of 2 ATP, 2 NADH, and your byproduct in this case is 2 pyruvates. So the next stage in cellular respiration after the glycolysis is the Krebs cycle. And the Krebs cycle's job is to basically finish breaking down glucose. So it takes the pyruvates that we made in glycolysis, breaks them down into acetyl-CoAs, and when it's breaking them down, it's breaking bonds and releasing energy. So as we said before, ADP comes into place and absorbs the energy because it is an energy carrier, and a new molecule is introduced, FAD+. And when you break the bonds, the electron is released and it is absorbed by NAD+ and FAD+, and it comes to create NADH and FADH2. And you're also trying to get through this process molecules of CO2. So you mainly get, after this, ATP, 1 molecule of FADH2, 3 molecules of NADH, and CO2, but that's only for per 1 molecule of pyruvate. So when you end with 2, basically what we do, or what I do, is just I multiply all what we get from 1 molecule and just multiply it by 2. The last stage in cellular respiration is oxidative phosphorylation, and this takes place in the intermembrane space of the mitochondria. And what this process is that we take all the NADH and FADH2s from our previous stages, glycolysis in the Krebs cycle, and we apply them here. So we break them down and break their bonds so that they release the electrons, and they go through the protein complexes in the intermembrane space. And the protein complexes don't want the electrons in there, so they pass from each protein complexes from all inside the intermembrane space,
and then it pushes out through the protein complex to be a hydrogen gradient. And these hydrogen gradients go back through the ATP synthase as ADP to be converted to ATP, and it's pushed through, and essentially this hydrogen gradient needs to be replenished below the protein complex, which is it replenishes it with oxygen, which is O2, to be a molecule of water, H2O. Our metabolic inhibitor is pyruvate carboxylase deficiency. Pyruvate carboxylase deficiency is a disorder that is very rare. It affects the nervous system, occurs during the Krebs cycle, and causes increased amounts of lactic acids and acetyl-CoA in the blood.
And some symptoms that you can have are weak muscles, vomiting, you could have like being really tired or fatigued, and it just really affects like your nervous system, like Jordan said.
Alright, so this ends the bio project.
We hope you enjoyed and that you learned something, or at least had a good time watching it.
I'm Matt.
I'm Matt.
And he's Matt. We love you, Saya. You're the best. Yes, this just ends it here. Thank you for watching, and God bless. Matt loves you, Matt loves you, Matt loves you.